Hey, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the Daily Whatever Show. It is Saturday, the 27th of September. And thanks to Substack, we had a little bit of technical difficulty at the beginning. But we're here now and we're live already.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Dana.
Good morning, Lawrence. How are you?
I'm good. I wish Substack would figure its shit out so that when I schedule lives in advance and invite you to them as a co-host, that you
Actually
actually
get
have the
invited.
invite and can join at the scheduled time. That would be what a concept, right?
That would be fabulous. Yeah, Substack, if you could get on that, that would be great. It's
Please and thank you. Rather than seeing what everybody else is subscribed to, maybe you could just make the actual process of joining lives easier. That would help.
right. We have a few suggestions for Substack if they ever want to have us come in for a user study, call us.
Right. Call us.
Well,
Well, I see that our guest for today, Elizabeth Silleck LaRue, has joined the chat. Welcome, Elizabeth. We will add you here in just a moment.
you
But first, I have to tell everyone that's my best friend right there.
That's my best friend right there. And
Aw.
you know what I was just thinking about, Lawrence, is we started doing this kind of spontaneously, but when the recap comes and it's horizontal, we're going to be in the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So I
I
think the
all right.
person
That's my friend. That's my best friend.
that's my best friend. There's the other person on this screen is my
Right.
best friend.
Yes. But also when we're clipping thumbnails for the show, we're always including the guests. So I suppose it doesn't, who knows?
Although some,
Anywho,
yeah,
no
sorry.
big whoop. Anything important happened yesterday, Dana?
No, not really at all.
What?
I'm
Girl, you
kidding. We
crazy. We
we
had
had an
Karen Atia on the show.
That feels like it was like a week ago. I can't believe it was yesterday,
It
but it
was
was incredible.
it was incredible. I think we kind of killed it, and I think she really liked us. And
Oh,
oh my God, I
no,
adored
she
her.
we
I Yeah, I
I
want her
woke up
to be our new
yes.
bestie.
I woke up this morning thinking about Artemis, and I really hope her kitty is okay.
Me
I thought
too.
it was sweet how many of the comments, like post-event, people who went back and listened were worried about Artemis. So I feel like we're putting a lot of good energy out in the world
Yes.
for poor little kitty. Um, yeah, it felt really important. And Lawrence, I'm your best friend, so I'm always going to be your biggest cheerleader, but you were incredible. Um, you
Thanks.
all probably noticed that we had slightly differing roles, that Lawrence kind of took the lead um, in driving the questions and the conversation, and I took the lead with the chat and making sure that the voices from the chat were heard. And you were incredible.
Well, thank you.
It
I
was it
mean,
was really I wasn't expecting it to be as fun as it was.
it was fun. It was
I
really
knew she'd be
fun.
brilliant. I didn't know she'd be so cool.
Yeah, she's so cool. And this is the magic of our friendship and the show, right? Is when it's
Yeah.
music or culture or parenting or other topics, you are absolutely the go-to expert and you lead the conversation. And when we've got a global opinions person, columnist, the nerd who has been reading Time and Newsweek magazines since he was 9 years old.
That's pretty much the division of labor around here, right?
that is the
And
division of labor.
it works out beautifully,
Yes.
especially because the worlds so frequently overlap these days. You can't talk about culture without talking about politics. It's quite literally impossible. And Lawrence, I'm really excited to bring Elizabeth on today. But we'll get into that backstory in a moment. I feel like we need to take a pause and just talk because we've had so many great guests on this week. And it's Saturday. I'm in my Saturday hoodie, it's my Postal Service death cab hoodie. Yeah.
I love
And
it.
thank you. And I'm like, whoo, I just need to chill. So we've been so on. But here was the thing that happened just as I picked up my phone to be like, okay, last check before I go into do not disturb mode to join the live. And it was It was my ex-husband, who is my friend. I think you all know that. Lawrence certainly does. And he had texted me a news link, as we sometimes do, not to the family chat, but just to me. Um, Trump has ordered the full military invasion, might be too strong a word, but he's heading to Portland.
Portland, Oregon?
Yeah. Shoot, I don't have the link, but let me just Google it. I'm sure it's here because he's a smart guy and wouldn't send me to a rumor. Trump says he's sending troops to Portland to protect ICE families, or no, to protect ICE facilities, and it authorizing, quote, full force.
Full force is deadly force. Is he fucking insane? I
I'll put
mean,
the link here in the
yes, he's
chat.
insane and he wants a fucking riot. He wants to declare martial law.
This is
Okay, awesome. Right
so
before
Portland is,
Tuesday.
yeah, not only is Portland 3 hours away from Seattle, it's the next major city. Like it's the like I'm going there very, very soon with my daughter to go look at colleges. Like it is right there. It is immediate. I have my hotel booked. It could have just as easily been this weekend. Um, so the fact that it is not lost to me that we're about to have a conversation about leaving the US.
I was
And
going to say,
like you
like,
could probably,
talk
yeah,
about a segue for Elizabeth, for setting up Elizabeth. Like, she's going to talk to us about emigrating out of the United States, which she herself has done. And wow.
yeah.
Yeah, my
I'm
God.
you can probably, did you just say on God?
No, I said, my God.
Okay, you sounded like my kids.
I
You say
mean,
on
I
God.
could. Which
Gen
once
Z
again
language.
reminds me that all youth culture is basically ballroom and drag culture because On God
Yes.
comes from ballroom and drag. I'm just saying, which,
I
let's be really honest, ballroom and drag is basically black culture, specifically black women's culture and gay culture mashed together. So
right?
you're
Um,
welcome, everybody. Thank the black women and the queer folks that you know for creating culture because
for all
it
the
feeds out into the kids, and then the kids make it popular, and then everyone else starts saying it, and then the cycle starts all over again.
right? Lawrence, this is very strange. I'm on genxc.io, our homepage, and I keep hitting refresh and I see a flash of our live and then it disappears. I can't join it on the
Oh,
desktop.
crazy. Well, I've got it open, so
Yeah,
we're
I was just gonna put the link in. It's a BBC article. If you just Google Trump and Portland, you guys can probably tell I'm a little low energy and I'm rattled. I'm deeply rattled by that. That's very close to home. It's very immediate. It's
all right. I mean, it's all over the place now. I just found it on
yes.
CNN. Uh, Marnie, thank you for noticing the t-shirt. I have quite a few No Kings in America t-shirts available on alpacalunch.com. And if you want to buy one, they're print on demand, so it takes a couple extra days. Go do it now before the 18th, so that you can get your shirt in time. Um, okay.
Yeah.
At
So
the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, says Trump, I am directing Secretary of War, first of all, fuck you, Pete
fuck you.
Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I'm also authorizing full force if necessary. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Um yes. Have you all look Portland? Portland.
Portland. Yeah.
Portland is
You know
like
what Portland is famous for? Strip
the
clubs where they get to go all the way naked. Uh,
you put a bird on it.
you put a bird on it, right? Really good donuts.
The Decemberists, the
The
band
Decemberists. Decent
Powell book
weed if you like that kind of thing.
Powell Books, the
Right.
hugest
Powell
bookstore in
Books.
the world.
A
Um,
good downtown streetcar transit system. Portland at war. Yeah.
lots of bridges over a river. Portland is lovely.
Portland is charming as fuck.
Fried Egg, I'm in love. They have a very small chain. I think it started as a food truck of breakfast places called Fried Egg, I'm in love. I have a hoodie from there. I had to check and make sure this wasn't it because every menu item is a pun off of a song. Like there's the Huevos Mutilation, like Wave of Mutilation by Pixies, and I can't remember the Smells Like Teen Spirit one, but there's a play on it. There's a Yoko Ono,
Oh,
like everything. But Fried Egg, I'm in love is so brilliant that,
Fried Egg I'm in Love is
you know,
pretty fucking amazing.
any Cure reference, I'm happy. So that's Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon. I mean, the worst thing you could say about it is that, like Seattle, there is a homeless population there
Right.
because
Literally, the
so
worst thing you could say about Portland is they have a bad homeless situation. And being a liberal city, they've tried to do the, like being unhoused is okay, which being unhoused is okay. But it has gotten to the point where I know that there is a lot of neighborhood stress because there are neighborhoods that are really uncomfortable with the number of unhoused people that are there. And
sure, but that's like normal urban NIMBY shit. We
right,
have it here too.
right. Yeah, exactly. It's normal urban NIMBY shit. It is not a war zone. It is not now, nor has it ever been a war zone.
Except after George Floyd, when I can't remember if it was national or local cops, but the cops went full riot gear and there were protests
Right.
here and there, and they were warranted protests. And it was aggression by the
Yeah.
government. I'm
Uh,
pretty upset this morning, Laura. It's like, you know how I keep in my own head, at least, maybe we all have this. It's like, what's the line that if that line is crossed, we've got to go and like post haste. We've just got to get out. I've talked about this with my ex. I don't want to say his name. I haven't asked to name him on air. Um, my ex just sounds so harsh. He's my family, but we have a couple lines already defined. Like the minute I have to register myself and my children as Jewish, we're gone.
oh, fuck yeah.
That's
Um,
generational trauma. Like, do not pass go. That would be like literally we're packing our bags. We're getting on the next flight out, and I will call a property management company and say, "Here's the punch code. Go in and go rent the house." That's it. The day that someone shows up on my doorstep for our writing or podcasting,
yeah.
that's
Um,
another one.
this is a great segue into bringing Elizabeth
Yeah,
on.
let's
You
bring
want to
Elizabeth on.
give her bio as we add her to the presentation? The presentation, like we're at a work call.
Like we're giving a
I'm adding you to
PowerPoint.
the Zoom meeting.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and read this because Elizabeth, oh, and she's here. I don't want to be hidden when you come
Buenos
on.
dias.
Hello.
Hello.
Buenos dias,
The
Elizabeth in Mexico.
segue. What? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Just, that question of where the line is one that I am constantly talking to clients about. And I know we had originally talked about covering some of my articles regarding relationships and the impact of uh, of immigration on relationships and the forces driving immigration on relationships. But if you want to pivot, we can do that because I live and breathe this every day. So we can
Oh my
cover.
gosh.
We can talk about this in the context of sort of, the forces driving people and specifically people who are marginalized. And I'll just say, Dana, so like a lot of Jewish people come to me to leave the country.
Yeah.
Jewish people.
Well,
Thank you
yeah,
so much
because
for joining us. Can we try to do both? I think we should pivot at the beginning and talk about kind of this breaking news.
yeah.
But I saw that Wes just joined the chat as well. I'm imagining that's your other half, right?
Yes,
Uh,
he's in the other room with the fur babies. Hi, babe.
nice,
Oh,
nice. We love
I
that.
love it when
Yes.
significant others join the chat.
Um,
The
so
whole goal.
welcome to Wes, and also we absolutely, I want us to be able to talk about, we want us to be able to talk about, kind of how these dynamics impact relationships. And you wrote really beautifully and eloquently about being in a mixed race relationship and how that dynamic impacted your sanity, right? Impacted your relationship, it impacted your comfort and your ability to relax with each other. And that's huge. Um,
Yeah.
so I yes, like let's remember to talk about that, but also, holy crap, Elizabeth, Trump is going to invade Portland. What the
Right.
actual fuck?
Oh my God. And before we jump in, I do want to introduce you to our audience because this is your first time here.
Right.
You wrote this
Random
beautiful
woman.
bio. I'm going to just do a couple touch points on the bio, and then if you want to fill anything in, you should. Um, Elizabeth, you founded Conscientious Emigration to help I love this, values-aligned people from the U.S. emigrate with an intentional approach to the environmental, economic, and cultural impacts abroad. You have a background in law and anthropology and decades of work in environmental conservation and social equity, and you bring an anti-expat lens to supporting clients into getting out of the U.S. without replicating harmful behaviors. Like, can you touch on that for a minute before we jump in? Because that's really beautiful and important that we're not just a bunch of ugly Americans being like, I ruined where I am. Now I want to come where you are and ruin that too.
Exactly that. Yeah, absolutely. So, like the bio says, I worked in environmental conservation policy, and I did a lot of work in what I don't know if we're still calling it DI Day. Bless you, salud. And I studied a lot in connection with my environmental law degree of, international law and genocide law and colonization and all of these, global forces. And I also grew up in New York. And where I grew up in New York, I was one of very few white people in my community. And I grew up around a lot of people from Latin America and the Caribbean, and a lot of people who were first generation American or, immigrated to the US when they were very young. So, and then I had a child when I was 15, and her father was actually an undocumented immigrant from Jamaica. And so I dealt with the immigration process related to my in-laws. And then later in life, I married a man who was from Argentina and navigated the US immigration process in that context. And then, of course, in 2022, my husband and I, my second husband and I, Wes, who's on the line, we emigrated to Mexico from the US, and I navigated that entire process. So it's sort of this mashup, right? Like my undergraduate degree was in women's studies and anthropology. And so I've been studying and living, right, the experience of these um,
Pretty.
intersecting, kind of systemic forces, right, for my whole life. So when I was leaving and when we were leaving, we were like very clear about what we did not want to replicate. And then I found myself helping other people who were like, we also are thinking about leaving. Found myself talking to people, identifying some of those tendencies of like, oh, my dollar's gonna go really far here. And oh, but they have my hair products? And you know, yeah, like this sort of colonial mentality, which I think has been bred in the US consciousness, right? American exceptionalism and all of that. Like the ugly American trope is something I probably don't have to explain to most people on this, right?
Probably not in this audience. I think
Probably not in this audience, right? So I was
we
like,
get
okay,
that.
exactly. So when I was like, all right, you know what? I'm a lawyer. All my nonprofit work is gone. It's just gone. All my nonprofit clients, I had EPA funded initiatives that I was supposed to work on,
Oh my
all of it.
God.
No income, right? Just no future. So when I said, okay, you know what? I have professional advice that I can offer. I've actually done it as opposed to some of the people that are out there advising people on leaving the US and are still sitting at home.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start counseling people and supporting people in doing this. But even though I know that the people who are going to come to me are going to be progressives because I write very candidly about my political persuasion, we're not exempt. We're not exempt from avoiding becoming that perpetuator of harm. And particularly when we're moving to countries that are deemed developing countries, right? Where we do have outsized economic power. We could be working class and even poor in the United States, and then bringing that same income to a country where their GDP is lower, their, everything is lower. We become the elite, and so we have to be intentional about um, the way that we show up and the impact we make. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I knew, if I'm going to be my own boss, I'm going to work with who I want to work with, not who I have to work with, because I've done that already for
Mhm.
decades. And so, yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I don't get as many clients as, your average expat service, and I don't want to.
Yeah. So you're in Mexico, and I think you're in Cozumel. Is that right? Oh my
Correct.
gosh. Cozumel, Quintana Roo, Yucatan. I love it there. That's absolutely amazing. And
I
I
love it.
think you visited Merida recently. Is that correct?
We did. Yeah, and
I love that city so much. It's so
Merida
cool.
is beautiful, beautiful. My only issue with Merida is it's so hot.
It's
I just
so hot. It's so hot. And it's
like,
not
and I
close to
will.
the coast. Like it's an hour drive to get up to Progreso to go to the beach.
Yes, yes, but it is beautiful and like just amazing history. And even Merida causes me to reflect, right? Because Merida is a colonial city.
Yeah.
It was built by colonialists, but the Mayan roots show up all over the place, and then the
Well,
majority of the
the,
population is Mayan descended, and it's just, it's cause for all to thinking about all of these things for sure.
yes, yes, the cathedral in Merida is made out of the blocks that they stole from the Mayan ruins. So it's this Catholic cathedral with like Mayan inscriptions randomly assorted throughout it because they literally looted the sacred ruins of the
Mhm.
Mayans to build that cathedral.
Yeah. Yeah,
There was all this time.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And what's interesting, what I find in Mexico is like that history is known. It's in your face, like people know it. And I don't feel like, and this is just my perspective, right? And maybe if you talk to somebody who has Mayan roots, they'll tell you something completely different. But it doesn't seem to me that there's this effort to like whitewash it in the same way that the United States does to its terrible history. Um, and that, like, you can have a conversation about it. So yeah, anyway, we can go. I can talk all day about this stuff. So please get me back on topic.
I
Well,
I
let's
do want to interject one fun fact because I've been reading your work and I see that you moved to Mexico from Florida. You've got two Floridians. We Lawrence and I grew up in South Florida, so we
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
we both
Other
went to the
coast. We were
university.
in Coral Springs outside of
Oh,
Fort Lauderdale, and you were in Sarasota, I think, right?
we were in Southwest Florida. Yeah.
And we're Southeast Florida, but we went to UF where we fled. This is a long time ago, so we didn't flee the country, but we certainly fled Florida. And with every passing year, and especially right now, I'm like, thank fucking God we're not there.
I
Yeah.
know. I
But
know.
my
I know.
family's there. My parents are there. So I go to see them a few times a year. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I so as I
Yes.
was reading your work about you and your Black husband, the looks you were getting, the like, it sounded like overt hostility, but at least microaggressions everywhere you went. Like I could feel it in my bones. I know like, I mean, I don't want to say I know your experience, but I know Florida. And
Mm-hmm. Oh,
um
yeah.
and yeah, do you want to talk maybe a few minutes of like what we were just talking about, like what line has to be crossed to get us to
Mm-hmm.
actually leave? Like, talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your experience that led you finally to be like, we're moving to Mexico. And then how did you pick where you are? I would love to hear some of your origin story with emigrating before we get into the legal good stuff.
Yeah, sure, sure. So Well, I'll say that the line was crossed for me personally, and this is actually part of the conversation about relationships too. The line was crossed for me personally in 2016, okay? When Trump was elected. And in fact, when Trump was nominated, for the Republican Party, I was like, this is crazy. But at the time, I was married to somebody who had fled um, a, 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 a persecution situation in Argentina.
Hmm.
And so he was like, I'm not leaving this country. Right. So that was Florida. Funny enough, and that was in 2015. Florida was it was our compromise because we were living in the DC area, and I was like, I can't take this cold anymore. I can't take ice anymore, and I can't take being surrounded by hard surfaces anymore. I need nature. So we moved to Florida, but psychologically and emotionally, for me, when I knew I'm not staying in the United States for the rest of my life and, like there's going to be a time that I leave, it was Trump's election. Then the hard line, and then, I got divorced, obviously, met my new husband, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to 2020, the next hard line was COVID. And and particularly in Florida, seeing, the insanity and that insane hypocrisy that Lawrence was alluding to earlier about like, it's not a war zone. With COVID, it was like, no, it's not the same thing. Like shaming people about not wearing masks and going out partying in the middle of a pandemic before there was even a vaccine is not the same as shaming someone for not going to get a facial. That was actually what some Floridian idiot told me, right? And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
like, the hypocrisy, the insanity, the complete divorce from facts, the fact that science didn't matter anymore, like all of those things, all hard lines. But the thing is, you can have a hard line that lets you know you want to go. It doesn't mean you can at that
Right.
time. And we couldn't. We couldn't. I mean, I was working for an organization and there was no way for me to transfer into another country. Like everything for us was financial. And then I got laid off. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I got laid off in 2020, which of course was financially horrible, but it freed me up to be able to pursue, becoming self-employed. And so ultimately what happened was over the course of 2021, like 2021 into 2022, early 2022, when we started to go back outside because we like really huddled for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, we started to see the Confederate flags popping up on the trucks all the time. We started,
Oh, yes.
I have a picture of it, and it's in one of my articles that had a flag on the back of the truck that said Bubba Army. And it was just like all the knowledge. Bubba Army. Yeah, I guess country. I don't know. To me, that said Bubba, the dude, the guy that is part of the lynch mob. Like, my husband is from Virginia and grew up as a teen in like northern Florida. So to me, like when I see stuff like that, I'm like transported back to the time of lynchings, which is not back anymore, right?
Right.
That's
Which
current
just
now.
happened in Mississippi. Right.
Exactly. And so,
That was a suicide,
like,
you
those
guys.
lines,
Sorry, I
right?
shouldn't even joke about that. I shouldn't even joke
Yeah.
about that. But it is
I
worth
mean,
mentioning that lynchings are happening and not being acknowledged. We're being lied to about lynchings,
Right.
yes.
which is even
And
worse. Like,
and I may not know this, but my husband's actually writing an article about it right now. There was a song that came out where there's a rapper from Florida who calls himself like the MAGA, I don't know what it is, the MAGA master or something like that, a pro MAGA rapper who collaborated with a country singer, and they made a song about lynching. And it's very, very, very explicit.
No.
Okay. Yeah, that came out. The song came out like 3 days before the Delta University student was lynched. So all of that. When I started seeing the people that I was seeing and encountering the people that I was encountering. I mean, we got run out of our home. It's like, I don't even want to get into explicit details, but the bottom line is that this was mounting and you could feel it. And especially for somebody that knows history, you know, and mind you, my husband is Black and we've only been married since 2021, but I had a child when I was 15 and she was Black. So it's not, I have 30 years of experience in being in an interracial family. So this knowledge is like very, very intuitive at this point.
Hmm.
So it was more of a feeling. It was more of a, an energy that I just knew, I mean, my husband was getting followed by the cops going from the grocery store 5 minutes away to our home. He would be cutting the grass in the front yard and people rolling. But I mean, Ahmaud Arbery was got murdered running. And my husband used to go out and walk our dogs on a street that looked just like where he was murdered. So it's just like it's only a matter of time. And I'm not a shrinking violet by any means. So I had to constantly, if you could,
sense that.
Right.
yeah. And like, so I had to be constantly like tamping down my own urge to put people in place because it could risk both of our safety. Right. And so and that's why when people talk about a line, right? And a lot of people want to find that line. They want to find, okay, the government's going to do this thing. The Supreme Court is going to do this thing. And the reality is, I don't know that that's necessarily useful because your day-to-day life is not necessarily contingent on those types of events,
Right.
right? Your personal, physical, real safety I mean, in some cases it is, right? Like they revoke passports of people who, meet a certain criteria, but by that time it's too late. Too late.
Yeah.
And when you
And a
talk
lot of those
about
lines, we can sometimes only see those lines in the rearview mirror, right? That,
That's my
oh, that was the moment that we lost that, but I didn't realize that until months later.
exactly. And on top of that, I mean, you look at and I was telling this to a client the other day. Look, the reality is there could be a trigger point that you identify, like a Supreme Court decision or something like that. And maybe the ramifications of that never actually touch you. People made it through the Holocaust underground. Like maybe it never touches you, but maybe that event never happens. And nonetheless, the culture in which you're operating and the risks that it presents from other people
Yeah.
can get you. And so, for me, it was just, it was a matter of, I know in my bones, and a lot of people, this is why I say a lot of Jewish people come to me because they have an epigenetic knowledge,
Yeah.
a cellular knowledge of like, it's a matter of time. And you don't know when that time is going to be. And so for me, I was like, as soon as we had the opportunity, and the opportunity arose because, our lease was ending and they decided in Southwest Florida, they decided they were going to hike up the lease by $400 a month to live in this like bumble F, like not even someplace anybody wants to live besides retirees.
You can
And
swear here, Elizabeth. You can totally
I
swear here.
know
We're okay.
I'm fine. I'm from New York, so the F bombs roll off my tongue.
Drop it.
Like
Drop it.
We have a show called Fucked Up Friday, Elizabeth. Bring it on. It can be shitty fucking Saturday. Bring it.
but you know what I'm saying? So so there was that, and then so we had gone actually. So my husband was like, he was definitely on board with the idea of leaving, but he had never even been out of the country. He had never been out of the country. So I was like, okay, look, let's go to Cozumel. I have been going to Cozumel for 14 years to scuba dive, and I mean, it's a magical place. It
It's
is one of
paradise. Yeah.
that I've found in this region that there has never been, to my knowledge, widespread plantation slavery here. And you can't say that about any other place in the Caribbean,
Right.
right? And so you have this flavor of the Caribbean, but you don't have the blood.
Right.
in the blood
Yeah, you
that
don't have the karma and the ghosts, the living ghost. Yeah, I get it.
exactly. I spent a lot of time working throughout the Deep South, and so that energy was always like, ugh, very clear. I mean, anytime my husband and I would walk around in any of these places, it was just very uncomfortable. So, I brought him here to check it out. I was like, we're gonna go on vacation. And we came and he fell in love with it. He went scuba diving for the first time. He fell in love with it. He was like, "This is wonderful. I feel great here." Like people were respectful to us, to him by himself, and then we got back to Florida and it was like, "Oh, we're raising your rent by $400." And then the whole reason we lived in this place was because it was surrounded by a forest on three sides. And so we were like, "Oh, we have our little hideout. Nobody knows we're here, whatever." And they tore down the forest. I woke up one morning, 7 in the morning, bulldozer
Mm.
bring down the forest. I took video of it and everything. I cried like
Fuck
a baby.
Florida. Fuck Florida.
It was so painful. Mind you, this had been like our sanctuary for all of COVID. We got married in that backyard. And we had sat there and watched the birds, and that was like our decompression because nature is like my solace. So they tore down the forest, all of those things combined, and we had just stayed in this place down here, and we connected with the property manager and turned out the rent in this place where we had stayed would be lower than what we were paying in Florida. Right? And so I basically looked at him and I was like, "Are you ready to do this? Like, I think we can do this."
No.
I think, and because we had gotten run out of our home in Bradenton by Trump supporters, this dude who he had a Trump ring, a ring with Trump's face on it. That's how thin he was.
God, Trumpies are so weird.
I
They're
know.
so weird.
It's so weird. And by the time we left that place, I sold that house. By the time we left it, they had a sign on their front yard that said, "Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president." Okay? Like that kind of crazy.
We're
So
laughing, but that's fucking
it's crazy.
just
It is
terrifying and disgusting.
it's insanity, right? And so we had the money or I had the money from selling my house, and we used that to qualify for residency. And we just did it. We did from the day that we said we're leaving to the day we crossed the border, it was 7 weeks.
Oh my God. I
Wow.
love that. That just when you're like, once you're ready, you're like, let's do it.
Done.
And off you went. What were the biggest hurdles for you or for your client? Like, like I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Um, Obviously money is going to be a hurdle for many,
Yeah.
but outside of just cold hard cash, what are the hurdles that Americans hit when it comes to picking a country to move to, or once they pick, getting in and getting settled? What do you see most?
I'm really curious about this too because you have an article on your site that's like, "Hey, not Portugal and Spain, people," which is like
Right, quit
that's
going
been
there.
my like little fantasy of like, "Oh, Portugal's really the golden visa's cheap. Maybe I'll do that." So I'm really interested in this piece.
Yeah. So that's two separate questions, I guess.
Okay.
Um, and I'll address the what holds people up first. So it's not just about whether people have enough money. It's often about how they're earning their money. So in fact, the W-2 employee who cannot get permission to work from an international location has on these handcuffs, right? And that was what stopped me for so long, right? Like if your only income, if your only income is from an employer and the employer is like, "Nah, we're not going to let you work from abroad." You can't do it clandestinely if you want to pursue a residency visa. If you're pursuing a residency visa, you have to demonstrate that you have permission from that employer to work not just remotely, but from that country. So if you can't get that permission, that is a huge barrier unless you have overwhelming assets. Well, not necessarily overwhelming. It depends on what country you're talking about. But in some cases, you might only need a a chunk of change in your bank account. In some cases, you need a lot. It also depends on the way that that money is held. So if you're not retirement age and you have a ton of money, but it's locked up in a 401k or 403b, most places are not going to really look at that as something that you can use to support yourself because you're not drawing from it, right? So it it's not just about how much money you have, but it's about your access and control over your money, and your sources of income. So that tends to be a barrier, but it's a barrier that we can often work around. And I've helped clients negotiate getting remote permission from their employers, and thereby being able to qualify. Um, and the other thing after that, I would say, is family. So obvious situation, which breaks my heart because I was a single parent for so long. But my daughter's father died when she was young, so I wouldn't have faced this situation. But if you are divorced or separated or whatever, and you have kids, and the other parent is not on board with you taking that child out the country, you're not taking that child out the country. So you have to decide: are you leaving your kid, which almost no mothers are going to do,
Right.
um, and or are you to stay. And, the interesting thing, and again, going back to growing up with a lot of people who were first generation American or, came when they were young. In fact, people leave their children behind every day to go to the United States all the time,
Sure.
all the time. So
I think
it's
there's a
like this.
perceived danger there, right? Like you're saying that, and I'm like, well, yeah, the kinder trains, that's in our DNA, Lawrence and me. Like the Germans put
Mhm,
their kids on the train to escape the Holocaust because it was dire, and oftentimes it was only that kid who continued the family line, right? Because the
mhm.
families got left behind and couldn't get out. And if it felt that dire, I 1,000% would put my kids on the boat, the plane. Like, you get out, go save yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it doesn't feel that dire here. I worry it will one day, but it doesn't now. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
as you
no,
were saying
no.
that, I can see with
Actually,
those trains, right? That are
well,
like,
I was talking about the reverse, actually, but you make a really, really great point. I was talking about the fact that adults, parents leave Latin America, the Caribbean, leave their kids behind with their family to pursue economic opportunity all the
yeah,
time.
Right.
It's like incomprehensible for a lot of people in the United States to say, I'm gonna leave and leave my children behind. And it is the thing that I think is really important, and I want to make this very clear. I'm not gonna judge anybody. Like, I don't judge people who decide to leave and leave their kids behind. I don't judge people who decide to stay because they won't leave their kids. Like, this is such an individual decision that every person has to make themselves and their family. And
mhm,
I just think it's ridiculous, like, when people are out here writing, because they do, judging people's decision. Oh, you left, you're a coward, you should stay and fight. Oh, you're staying, what's wrong with you? They're gonna kill you. You know what? None of those people are paying your bills. None of those people will bail you out of jail. None of those people will help you in your situation whatsoever. So you have to tune them out. So yeah, family. And then not only kids, but sometimes people have elderly parents that they're caring for, and they can't get their parents to be on board, or their parents just won't qualify for visas because they don't have the finances. Um, and then I think after that, there's like just this inertia. You know what I mean? It's hard. Emigrating is not easy. Like, if you've moved, right? You moved from Florida to Portland. That's not easy. Right?
yeah,
Uprooting
but yes, it
is
at
never
20s,
easy.
in my 20s, it felt super easy, but right now it would feel so hard.
Exactly, exactly, exactly right. And if you have property, you have to figure out how you're going to dispose of it. And then, people that have a lot of money are like, well, how do I deal with my money? I'm like, I don't know, because I don't have a lot of money. So you need to consult a financial advisor about that. I know how to deal with a decent amount of money. Um, there's a lot of things that hold people back. And then there are people that really want to believe that things are going to get better in the US. I obviously am not one of those people.
Yeah.
I like to believe that the whole the arc will bend toward light and all of that, but right now, when the city downstairs, I'm actually in Seattle, not Portland, but I've got a reservation in Portland with my daughter to go look at colleges. And so why I've written about this a bit of like everyone around me is, of course, all the parents are buzzing about college. I have a high school senior and we're doing the same. And I'm like, I feel like the only one who's like, aren't you worried about the state of our country? It's not a benign thing to have your child be far away anywhere, and especially in a red state, right? Like, ugh, it's just,
I think that's a barrier too. Like you're surrounded by people who are not attuned to what's happening
yes,
and
makes
that
you feel
are
crazy, right?
think you're crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, people thought I was crazy in 2016. Where are we now?
Right.
Who am I going to listen to? Myself. Sorry,
See?
because all the people who told me, the experts there were experts in DC, lobbyists, right, who I worked with, who told me that I was being like a conspiracy theorist because I was drawing the link between MAGA and Brexit. To me, the between MAGA and Brexit is clear as day. These
100%.
who went to Harvard Law School, okay, tried to tell me
Mm.
conspiracy theorist and I was, paranoid or whatever. Where are we now?
Well,
Like,
not only where are we now, Elizabeth, but we know definitively that there is a link between Brexit and MAGA because it was Russian bot farms that were waging a disinformation campaign
still are.
right, and
Absolutely.
still are, right? Like
Call it a war, Lawrence. You wrote that. It was your first story on Substack about we're already at war,
we are already at war. We
an
are in an
information war.
information war against Russia, and we are losing. We are losing. We have been losing
Absolutely.
for years.
We should rerun that story because like 2 people read it. It was the first thing you
Right.
posted.
I mean, it was like
And
the
it's
first
so
thing that
good.
we ever posted, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Run it because it's true. And the people who, again, back to barriers, like when you're surrounded by people who are in denial about that, because, I mean, most people are like, sheep, I guess you would say. Most people are like, well, the mainstream media says blah, blah, blah. But and people want to believe that things are rational and better than what they are. And so, and being surrounded by people like that is often a barrier to leaving because you get this feedback all the time that like you're being paranoid, you're being whatever. And one of the things that I tell my clients as well is that even if all of the risks that you're worried might manifest never happen, it's a valid reason to leave just because you're constantly in a state of anxiety. That is not healthy. Listen,
right,
people are leaving the US to go flit around the world because they want to eat better bread for the last 30 years. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to be
Right.
persecuted to leave the United States of America. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
yeah,
And it's really funny because and I'm going to get to your point, Lawrence, about Portugal and but it's really funny to me because there are people who left the United States like way before 2016 who, did because they wanted to like explore the world and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
whatever. And good for them. That's nice that they had that opportunity. And who now want to be like, oh, it's you guys are in trouble. Let me help you. And they have no concept of the struggle that goes on within a person who never had a dream to leave the United States.
right,
Most of my clients are not people who ever had a vision of themselves leaving the United States. They have community there. They maybe don't even speak another language. They're like, we didn't think we would have to leave. And so it's a very different orientation to the process when you built your life thinking you would stay where you're put and you have these roots and now you have to uproot everything is a completely psychologically, financially different experience than someone who's like 25 and they're like, I'm going to go explore Europe and then they never leave Europe. Like that's
right.
not the
Right.
same thing.
I've
So
been in this house 20 years. Like my roots are so deep here. I do want to, before we jump to the other question, one quick question from the chat that you touched on, learning another language. Do you speak Spanish? Did you when you got there? How important is it to speak the language before you immigrate?
that depends. How important it is to speak before you immigrate depends on where you go. And depends on the country. Well, depends on the country and depends on where you go within a country. Yes, I speak Spanish. I would consider myself now to be bordering on intermediate. When I left, like I said, I was married to an Argentinian, so I learned a lot. I learned a lot of Spanish growing up. My husband, on the other hand, spoke almost nothing, and he's learning, and he's doing tutoring. I think that the extent I think if you're planning to actually emigrate and stay in a country that the first language there is not English, you have to learn the language. Absolutely. The degree to which you need to have some level of proficiency before you go is going to vary. If you're going someplace where there's a lot of other people from the West, then you're going to have access to English speaking services. Then you can get away with some like very basic level. But I always encourage people to like get on it. You know what I mean? Like get on it, do all the things to help yourself get more proficient. And then the other factor is like some people are just like, no, I'm bad with languages. Like I can't, and I'm like, okay, so then your options are Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, Malta, like places, the British, former British colonies. There are other countries besides the United States where English is the first language, and that's where they should target. And then in Europe, I think Europe is variable again. If you're going to a city that is very cosmopolitan, you're likely to be able to speak mostly English. If you're going to the countryside, you better be speaking the language of that country, So it really depends.
I'm going to try this and I'm probably going to mess it up, but hace 23 años vivía en España y estudié español, pero olvido mucho. Olvido todo.
Sí, pero la cosa es que después de un poco tiempo,
Sí,
va a regresar.
espero que sí.
It'll come back to you. Yeah, practice and like people really don't understand like how much you can learn from listening to music, from listening to the news, watching soap operas, telenovelas. You can like all of that is training for your brain, and we very much do that. And it's so much better when you can speak the language. I mean, it's just you're giving respect to the people that you're around.
Yeah.
They respect you more. It's just it. I mean,
a few drinks and I stopped caring about verb conjugation, but I
Right.
don't have a knack for language. I've danced around Spanish. What I said was 23 years ago, I studied Spanish in Spain, but I've forgotten all of it.
Yeah.
but you did.
But I found even if you learn a couple of phrases, especially one that includes like, I'm sorry, my French isn't very good, but can you
But I
please help
learned.
me? Right? Like that got me so far in Paris, right? Like I didn't encounter any kind of rude Parisian kind of thing because I approached everyone trying to speak French, and I literally said like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm an American. My French isn't very good. Please forgive me. Can you
Can you
help
say it in
me?
French still? Do you remember how?
Uh, uh, Malheureusement, mon français est très mal. Je suis une American stupide.
You sound like you have a good accent, though.
The accent was
Right?
pretty
I
good.
feel like if you can at least try with the accent, even if you're saying like, I'm a stupid American and my French is really bad, they're just like, oh, you poor little thing. Let me help you.
But you
Yeah.
taught me this,
Yeah,
Lawrence, because Lawrence was the genius who took German in high school. So I can say, Deutsch ist eine schwere Sprache. And
German
that
is
got
a
me
very difficult language.
German is a very difficult language. And Germans get very excited when you say that and then start rattling off. And I'm like, yeah, that's all I got. I can say, Ich möchte ein Rotwein bitte. I would like a red wine, please. And a few other
No, but
select
you
spaces.
make a really good point about like trying and being humble,
Yeah.
And I actually wrote an article that's like, must know Spanish phrases if you're moving to Mexico. And one of them is, por favor, puede hablar más lento. Please, can you speak a little slower? And it's just like, it's, it's a, you don't have to be perfect. I know my grammar is like sometimes it's on point, sometimes it's total crap. It doesn't matter. The point is communicating, and showing that you're not asking somebody to acclimate to you in their country. You know, it's a basic respect, really. But
Yo hablo más que yo comprendo, which is unusual. I can say more than I can understand.
being, I'm not a good listener.
My brain gets so hung up on each word and trying to figure it out that I have a hard. Some people have that language knack where they can kind of step back and be like, "Oh, you're basically talking about this," and I get hung up. But if I have to figure something out in Spanish with pointing and if you'd like, cómo se dice la cosa que? Like, how do you say the thing that? And then you can
Yeah.
gesture, and I can get by. But
Like yeah, and the other thing that, like, I tell my husband all the time, he's like, "I don't know the word for that." And I'm like, "Okay, so describe the thing
yes,
using the words that you do know. Describe the thing that you're trying to say." And it's, there's all sorts of kind of tricks that you can get around it. The point is to communicate. The point is to not force other people in their country, to adapt to you. And then, I mean, really, we have Google Translate on our phones. Let's be honest. Like we can communicate in the language of the country if we make an effort. What is annoying is
glasses are coming, right? We're all gonna just. Oh no, the earbuds. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
Go ahead.
Those earbuds that are coming that do real-time translation.
Oh, there's that too. Interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Apple's new AirPods do instant translation, apparently.
Okay. I don't know.
Just some fun times.
I'm like, why don't you just learn?
Right, right. It's better to learn the language.
Elizabeth, do you mind if we keep you a little bit longer? I feel if it's
No,
okay if you need to stop. It's Saturdays, we're a bit more chill on time, and you are fascinating. I definitely want to hear the question to the Portugal Spain, the answer to the
Yeah.
Portugal Spain question.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, so Spain and Portugal, I think part of the reason that Spain and Portugal have been overwhelmed and flooded with people from not only the United States, it's actually a lot of Britons that have moved there. There are a lot of people from Russia that are like moving throughout Western Europe and Southern Europe. But there's what what drives me crazy is like if you know those blogs that come out on like MSNBC or whatever, MSN rather, top 10 destinations for expats, right?
Yes.
Always Spain and Portugal at the top for every
Malta,
single, like for everything, for retirees, for people from the gay community, for people who are progressive, for whatever. So they're always touted, and so people don't think deeply and critically most times, and so they're like, yeah, that's great. And both Spain and Portugal really marketed their digital nomad visas, their like non-lucrative visas, which do have relatively low income thresholds to prove that they can take care of themselves. And so you've had these, floods of people. And there was a time that I guess I don't remember when, but that like Portugal was at least saying that it didn't have enough people in some of the more rural places like Italy, track people and blah, blah, blah. So all of that is no longer the case. Now it's like, oh my God, there's too many people. And part of it is tour, right? Part of it is people that are literally going there on vacation, but then part of it is this digital nomad movement that obviously COVID was part of, kind of creating. And the backlash has been really severe. And, in Spain, it's primarily around Barcelona, Madrid. In Portugal, it's in Portugal, it's primarily around Lisbon. And, there's so many different factors at play, but I think the one that is I will say the two factors that from my assessment of talking to people and reading and, just kind of my overall like absorption of what's going on is the lack of respect and, cultural assimilation, so to speak. Part of that is obviously language, but part of it is also just behavior. Being expecting that your culture is the one that should dictate the way that people behave, the way that what the timeline on something should be. That's a big one. And that's definitely a big one in Latin America, like the fast pace and we want our stuff and we want it now. That is not what you do in, in Latin America. And that is not what you do in Spain and Portugal. Um, and then there's a lot of articles that come out about Britons that are there on vacation and they get drunk and they're loud and rowdy and they sexually harass and whatever, that type. And then there's the housing crisis, right? There's the fact that a lot of the money, the wealth in those countries is legacy wealth, right? People have properties that were passed down, ironically, that they, were able to acquire, or their ancestors were able to acquire through slavery, and benefiting from slavery. But regardless of that, their wealth is primarily vested in property and kind of this legacy wealth, but their incomes are really not that high. And so you have people coming from the United States and UK that are basically causing the, supply and demand, paying inflated prices for housing. Airbnb is part of this, right? And so there becomes a lot of resentment over the fact that people cannot afford to live in the neighborhoods where they grew up. Again, back to the cultural thing, changing the character of the neighborhood in order to accommodate tourists and nomads. This is happening very much in Mexico City as well. Starting to get some whiffs of this in Merida. I wrote an article not long ago about when we went to Merida. We were walking down this street and there was this freaking chalkboard outside of a store and it was like pumpkin spice latte. And I was like, I hate you so much for this. I just hate you so much. I don't have anything against people enjoying that drink, but it's a symbol and it's a symbol. And whoever wrote that knew it was a symbol and they did it anyway,
Right.
Just come on, y'all. Don't we learn? Don't you see what's happening in the Roma neighborhood in Mexico City? People are throwing bricks through the glass and, I mean, people do not want to be gentrified out of their homes. And so we have to do better, And so I just basically, I have a client that's moving to Portugal. They have citizens, they have available, they have access to the citizenship by descent. So it's okay, well, it makes sense to go, that's their only avenue. But if you have options, I feel like there are other options. And that's not, I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Phew.
I know I talk a lot.
No.
It's not that you're talking a lot.
Such good information. And I mean, so, I've been thinking about emigrating for years and haven't pulled the trigger. And years ago, I kind of found out about the Portugal Golden Visa, and it's not the same anymore, right? And they changed it for the reasons that you're talking about. It used to be that you had to invest in property, you had to buy property. And then what they found is that it jacked up, you got into the issue of too many Americans buying properties. There were condos going in that was nothing but Americans buying these condos so that they could. And now I think you have to invest in arts or financial investment funds. But I've long been concerned about one, I don't speak Portuguese. I really don't, I speak a little Spanish. I don't speak any Portuguese. And, and I'm one of those people who I'm midlife. My career kind of collapsed out from under me because of the tech, sort of disaster that's ongoing and AI and I don't got any money. I don't think I can emigrate. I think I got to stay here and fight because it's just not possible. Is there anything available for people who maybe don't have any savings, or is it just sort of if you don't have the money, you can't do it?
You don't always have to have savings. So yes, the short answer is yes. There are visa programs that, if you can prove consistent income of a certain threshold, and in many cases, that threshold is actually quite low. So, for example, what's important is that the source of income needs to be outside of the country where you're applying. So there are visa programs specifically designed for people who are not going to come and compete with local, the local population for income, are bringing their income from outside. Some of those are pensionado visas, and so they're designed for people who are collecting a pension or are retired. But for people who are not quite at that age and they're self-employed, if you can demonstrate that you have a flow of income that is consistent and particularly if it's within your control, then there are absolutely options. I'll give you an example. Off the top of my head, I think, well, I'm pretty sure Chile, it only requires 1,000 USD, the equivalent of 1,000 USD per month for their financial independence visa, but I don't remember whether there's an age minimum on that. Belize, for example, I know this very, very well. Belize, you only have to, in order to be qualified for their qualified retirement program, you only have to show $2,000 a month USD in income, and and to be retired in Belize, you only have to be over 40, right? So,
Do
now,
that.
right now, let me just say the question of whether you can live on that is a separate question,
Right,
right?
right.
So even though, like the visa, you might pass the threshold for the visa, you have to also look at the cost of living and, be honest with yourself about whether you will be able to live comfortably. But there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of figure this out. So if you own property, if you own real estate, in some cases, rental income can be used to show that. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to work around it. You have to start with the real definitive intention. If you're still like on the fence, then you're not going to do all the things that are required because there's a lot of things. It's
Right,
not fun. It's not fun
right.
stuff. It's a lot of work. And so it starts, okay, I definitely want to go. And then you figure out the how.
Yeah. Two questions are coming to mind for me, and one is from the chat. I'm going to say them both, though I recognize they're different questions. My Swiss cheese brain will forget. The one is it always a one-way door?
Oh, it's never a one-way door.
Okay.
You don't relinquish your U.S. citizenship unless you pay to and you go through a very extensive process to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The other question, asking for myself and also from someone from the chat, if one person has access to citizenship either by descent or because they're a citizen, but the spouse does not, is there a solution for that?
Almost always yes. Almost always yes. Yeah, unless the spouse has criminal convictions that would bar them from getting a visa or owes federal, like it has some kind of restriction on their passport because of that's going on in the US. If they have a valid passport, almost always, and there are very, very few visa programs that don't allow the spouse to either attach themselves to that residency visa or apply for what they usually call family unity, which is basically like I'm getting my own visa, but it's based on the fact that my spouse has this visa. Almost always, yes. And I often have to tell people to get married, which is kind of fun.
Do you have a
Elizabeth,
side
I'm like,
business as like a wedding
yeah.
planner and
No,
come to
no,
Cozumel, get married here, and then apply for your visa?
Oh my God, that's
no,
so.
I don't. But I just had a client I just had a call with a client this week, a follow-up call. I delivered a report for them and they're partners and they've been together for a long time. And I told them, I was like, look, all of this is going to be a lot easier and you're going to have to prove less in terms of your finances if you get married. And sure enough, they got their date and everything. I was like, oh, I just love love. So, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, that's so
What
sweet. And
what differences do you see when it's queer couples that are applying
hoping we
for
get there.
immigration? Well, I mean, very personally relevant to me, right? Like, if me and my boyfriend want to try to immigrate someplace, we don't, we're not married yet. We're probably not gonna be for a very long time. Like, how do you? What do you? I think maybe this hints at what you were talking about previously. That sometimes you tell people you got to get married, and maybe that's part of the answer.
Yes, that is the answer. So
Okay.
the main difference in when I'm dealing with queer couples, which I do often, and often also with couples who where one person is it transitioning, right, or they have transitioned. The first thing is like where you got to go someplace that's better than the U.S., right? So your options are more limited, right? And then if you're an interracial family, your options are further limited, sadly, right?
Yeah.
And I have clients that are, queer and interracial, right? So the first thing is, you have to make sure that the places where you're targeting are going to be safer than where you are. And there are countries that meet that bill. If you like, let's say for you and your partner, if you really are opposed to getting married, then just know that basically, number one, you're going to have to come up with almost twice as much income to show,
Yeah.
right? Because the way it works is like the primary applicant has to meet a certain threshold, and then with a dependent, typically, not always, but typically, they tack on kind of, maybe a third of that amount, in some cases 75% of that amount. It depends on the country, but that will be your dependent's additional required income. Whereas if you're not married, each of you needs to meet that threshold and, separately. So you're going to have to come up with more money if you're not married. And then when you get there, it may be challenging, depending on where you are, it may be challenging in terms of just, kind of bureaucratic processes, getting housing. I mean, the reality is gay people discriminated against in housing, right? So being married is a little bit more, it demonstrates a little bit more stability in the relationship, that the relationship is more serious and stable.
Yeah.
I also, I've also worked with poly couples, right? Or polycules, and that introduces a whole mess, right? That like we got to try to figure it out and work
Right?
through
It's like
like
a
how are you
chain.
going to, yeah, it's
You
like how
marry
are
this one and you marry that one, and that would be a
yeah,
great reality TV show actually of like a polycule and the things they had to go through to get out of the country.
a lot. And when you think about it, one piece about getting married that's very important that I didn't mention is, God forbid something happened and you're in the hospital, right? You want to be next of kin. You want to be a spouse. You don't want to be a boyfriend. you know, you don't want to be like, you want to be the person that is going to get notified, is going to have the power to make decisions for your loved one. Like, so I find it advantageous. I also tell every single person, and I have one myself, get a prenup. Get a prenup while things are good.
Sure.
You know, but I like it just makes things easier, and it gives you, it obviously it gives you more rights, right? That's why people fight for marriage rights, because there are legal rights and financial rights associated with that contract. So yeah, I would say get married. You can go tell him she said to do it. We have to now.
Okay. All right. I'll go tell him.
Oh, Lawrence, I'll
Thank you.
appreciate. We have a really good question from Rick in the chat. Um, maybe that's an offline conversation here. I really want to know what a good immigration lawyer retainer should be in various markets around the country. Super important, personally important question. So it looks like Rick is looking to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, an immigrant, first of all, it's hugely variable. What an immigration lawyer is going to charge in Mexico is going to be completely different than what they're going to charge in the Netherlands. I mean, there's no way to answer that. Just like any other professional service, the rates are going to depend on the market in that country, in that city. How many people are flooding their phone, right? People are going to charge what they can charge. I'm not an immigration lawyer. I don't hold myself out to be an immigration lawyer. So, I can't answer that. I can tell you that I know one client who I think they paid I want to say $6,000 for their immigration process in Uruguay. I know somebody who's working with a Portuguese lawyer, and they just have an ongoing bill. Right? So it
So,
really is gonna vary,
retainer.
but you're gonna be in the thousands for sure. I mean, if if they are actually good at their job, right? Even in a country where the market rate is lower, you're going to be in 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, Rick is actually correcting me that this is for someone not to expatriate, but to correct her green card. So that's a little different from this conversation. I think it's into the United States. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know about that one, I don't think. I don't want to get too into my own situation. I'm like, Elizabeth, we're going to talk. I'm going to hire you. But one question that may be relevant to many is, what if one's child is a citizen elsewhere and like my children are EU citizens through their dad? I am not. And they're
Minors?
teenagers. Yes, for now. They're 15 and 17. Is there a path to either citizenship or living in another country and getting the benefits of that and the right to work through being a mother of a citizen?
I don't know. I've never encountered that particular question. What I can say is it will depend, right? It's going to depend on the country and the visa that you're talking about. But so actually, I did find, I remember there was one client I consulted and they were interested in New Zealand, and there was a pathway for the student to go to school for university, and their parent could get a visa if the student was in university there. So I'm sure, I'm sure that the pathways exist. It's just going to be where and what do you have to prove?
Right. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, we are so grateful that you've spent so much time with us today. I
Pleasure.
kind of don't want the conversation to end, but also like we've kept you 20 minutes over.
Yeah,
Basically.
no. Like, yeah, and I can come back again another time. Like,
Oh, we
this
would love
we
that.
would
I
love
was just
that.
going to ask if you
Think
would.
about this. I really do, because it's like, I don't know. I found out when I was 42 years old about my paternal heritage, and I found out that my both my grandparents on my father's side were immigrants to the U.S. And so it's like a full circle thing. You know what I mean? This immigrant experience, and international experience. And I love it. I really love what I'm doing. I love the people I'm working with. They're so cool. The US is losing really, really good people, you know, as it deserves to. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy. This was wonderful for me to talk to you guys. And
Yes. Oh my
I, I,
gosh.
I hope you and Wes like go take a walk down on the beach today or do something in beautiful Cozumel and just relax and enjoy the good decisions that you have made. I wanted to say something earlier. I loved what you said about trusting your gut and trusting your intuition. I think that there are a lot of us who have been trained by the society to not trust our guts and to trust our intuition. And I'm just so excited for you that you did. You felt it. You knew it in your bones, and you followed your instincts. And I'm so happy for you that you did that.
thank you. Thank you. We have no regrets. None.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm gonna, as I sit here and worry, do I need to cancel our college tours and our trip to Portland because it's going to be under attack? I'm gonna think about you walking on the beach,
Right.
hopefully eating ceviche or, something delicious like that, and just enjoying your time. I'm sure there'll be music playing. I can picture the scene. Ha. Um,
Okay.
It sounds wonderful. Thanks to everyone. What a lively, great chat we've had today. Yeah, this has been a delightful way to start my Saturday. I'm dreaming of possibilities.
Good.
I'm gonna call you, Elizabeth.
Hit me up.
Elizabeth Silleck LaRue, thank you so much for joining us. And I keep putting your Substack into the chat. Everyone, please go subscribe to Elizabeth's Substack. And we will have you back if you would like, because we had such a great time with you. And I'm sure there's more to learn.
For sure. Have a good
Right.
weekend, everybody.
Thanks,
Love you, mean
everybody. Thank you
it.
so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye.
Cuídate.
Adios.
Adios.